Okay. So, welcome everybody to another one of our Fullcast Fireside Chats. I'm your host, Tyler Simons. I run customer success over at Fullcast, and we're a go-to-market planning and execution platform. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about why RevOps is our secret weapon for growth. And we were thinking about this a little bit, and we're like, well, we don't want to hear from another RevOps person. Why don't we hear from a CRO? And so we decided to bring Will Urban onto our little chat today to kind of give us that perspective and give us some insight there. Welcome, Will. Why don't you give us a little detail on what you've been up to lately?
Hey, Tyler, thank you. Well, we're just up, we're scaling a really large, I think we're past this kind of the startup phase because we're in our 8th year, but Flexport is a very digitally enhanced freight forwarder. We're trying our mission is to make global trade easy for everyone. So we leverage technology to help our customers get the most out of their global supply chains through visibility and a lot of things that just drives down their cost to serve and also makes them more efficient in at the end of the day getting their goods to their customers anywhere around the world. And so we have a pretty large go-to-market team around the world that supports that and our growth.
Awesome. I had a previous life as an industrial commercial real estate broker, and I specialized in logistics and stuff in the Long Beach port, and I just get so fascinated with how technology applies to all the logistical stuff these days, and super interesting to see what Flexport is doing. So that said, we're not here to talk about Flexport the whole time. We are here to talk about why RevOps is our secret weapon for growth. So I want to just jump into the first question here, which is just why or what do you think good ops teams are doing in this current economic environment?
Well, for us and our revenue ops teams, which consists of kind of 3 pieces, really 4 pieces. One is our top of funnels, our demand gen motion. We, especially in the SMB type customers, we drive a lot of interaction and growth with that market segment, and it starts with demand gen. And then in either case, we've got a whole SDR group that can be working on in business development, people that are working on small, medium, or very large, like Fortune 500 companies. We have a very robust sales team that's out selling that once they're, and working with those SDRs. And then finally, it's handed over to an account management team that's really strategically implementing the accounts and driving growth and really being that advocate for our clients within our platform and network. So that's our 4 pillars. And really what's most important about those is that in our business, it's very much a domain expertise sell. They have to be extremely knowledgeable in not only how we do business, but global trade in general. So all the things that are happening around the world that are affecting commerce. And so we spend a lot of time making sure that our teams know what's going on, they can talk about it, and then they can apply our technology and our service offerings in a meaningful way that helps our clients navigate all the things that are going around in the world with regards to global trade and commerce. And so that's when we talk about RevOps for us, other than the obvious things like being organized with your CRM and a cadence of how we review and prospect business. Those are the most important things for us. It's that knowledge-based sell.
Yeah, I was actually curious, so revenue operations is really supporting a lot of that enablement aspect for you and the team.
For sure. So we've got sales operations. We've got a sales operations team that has a couple different pieces. One is enablement. So we've got dedicated folks that are focused on training those 4 kind of pillars of people that I mentioned. And then we've also got our typical sales ops people that are doing CRM work, driving our pipeline. Because it's not like a SaaS company where you sign up and then they're on the web and using your software. When we bring on business, we're implementing the operational piece of managing their shipments. And so that sales pipeline is so important because it's two things. One, we want to know where we're at against our AOP and goals and numbers for the year, obviously. But the second part is we need to give visibility to the rest of the organization on what's coming their way. So, and there's two pieces from that. One is labor to manage those shipments. And then the second piece is capacity. When I say capacity, I mean air and ocean freight capacity on airlines and steamship lines that we contract with to manage the flow of that cargo. And so that takes time, and it also takes insight, and we have to know when it's going to come on board. And so that revenue ops or sales ops piece is just so important to be projecting way downstream what's going to be coming towards us. And that's kind of the second piece of the obvious sales piece. Is, it's using the right tools and things to make sure that our revenue ops is on top of it.
Yeah, this is super interesting. It's like I don't want to get too far into the weeds, because I think this is very related to your business, but it sounds like you not just have like this like sales process of getting a customer, but once they are a customer on the like account management side, there's a lot of stuff that happens in terms of just consistently selling open space on, like, to your point, like airlines and ships.
Right.
So,
Well, it starts with discipline in the sales ops from the very first time we're doing disco with a client, recording that information all the way through till we're actually shipping something.
Yeah.
It's kind of garbage in, garbage out, right? So if we're very focused on the front end and our sales and revenue ops, we have a good outcome on the back end from an operational execution perspective. It's all linked together.
Yeah. I'm certainly, and I want to go back to the enablement piece of just to talk a little bit more about that, just because I think that's super interesting. And I feel like as companies really scale, or things are, the economic environment is just throwing things at your front door, right? Like you're just like, come on in, and it's been super easy. Enablement gets pushed to the back end a little bit. And as we talk about the current economic environment, and where a lot of companies are starting to see this slowdown and pipelines are getting a little bit tighter, I feel like enablement does play a huge role in trying to help sales reps be more effective, and can potentially like increase their win rates, because they're just able to speak to the problems better. There's more of like that solution selling. I mean, would you agree with that, or do you think that like that's maybe not necessarily the case?
No, I agree with that completely. And to take it even further, in the global supply chain has been a disaster the last couple of years, right? I mean, and it's funny because it's been on the tip of everybody's tongue, where before no one would ever have talked about it. Now everybody understands what I do and what we what our company does. But during that period of time, it was all about, hey, just how can you get any capacity? What's the price? And get it moving. Now that things have slowed down and kind of gotten to normal levels, you can't sell transactionally. You have to be able to sell, and to your point, an end-to-end solution. And to do that, it's a very knowledge-based sell. And then the enablement piece is so important, right? So even during the time now where things have slowed down and there's more capacity in the market, and customers are not shipping as much as they were, it's even more important to be able to exhibit, hey, we know what we're doing, right? And that salesperson, whether it's an SDR or an account manager or an AE, is exhibiting to that client that they understand all the nuances in the market to help them succeed. And if you don't show that in our business, it's going to be a very short conversation. So the enablement piece is really huge. And we look at it by tenure. So as someone becomes more tenured with us, we expect them to have a bigger and greater knowledge base. And we do that through our enablement team. We do that through a lot of one-on-ones with, and coaching with a more senior sales rep to a more junior sales rep. There's a lot of different ways that we drive enablement through Flexport, but we do have a dedicated team that sits in our sales RevOps group. And that's their sole goal, is to make sure those people are educated on how we do things and what's going on in the marketplace.
Makes sense. So we've got a question already from Jeff. How are you using RevOps to drive pipeline and velocity through the funnel? So I think this probably ties a little bit towards this next kind of chunk of thing that we're going to talk about, but I figure this would be a good lead in to just quickly address this and maybe see what we can uncover.
Well, I mean, to me, the pipeline is the most important thing of it. It's our lifeblood, right, for the company, and that's what I'm most. I mean, that's my greatest responsibility at Flexport. That's what I owe our CEO is a robust pipeline to hit our goals and growth targets. So, what we want to do with RevOps is, and I think a lot of these terms get used in an ambiguous sort of way, right? Sales ops, RevOps, but that whole piece of it, we use it to gauge where we're at any one time. That's the really most important thing. And so it takes discipline to get data in the right places, the right tools to have visibility to that data. And I want to make it as easy on our people to use, because I want them to spend time talking to customers, not trying to figure out how to capture data, right? Or slog through, 29 fields in Salesforce to get us what we need to have. And so that's where it's just so important. And when we get those things down, it drives velocity, because I want our salespeople to have the ability to touch as many customers as possible, not doing administrative work. Yet that visibility is important for all the reasons I mentioned before. And so it's that balance of giving our people the most tools, enabling them to move as fast as possible, yet capture the most accurate and up-to-date information. And that drives velocity through our sales pipeline. We have deals that take 3 years, right? We have deals that take 2 weeks. And everything in between. It really depends on the scope and the size and the complexity of the client. And so when you talk about velocity, we have to move that 3-year deal along as fast as we possibly can, just like we do the 2-week deal that we might close. So velocity is very important, and it all stems from great tools and process.
Makes sense. So revenue operations, and I'm just going to keep we know what all the different terminologies are for RevOps, but we'll just call it RevOps. So I feel like you in the CRO position and RevOps and this has been a theme in the past fireside chats, are a lot of discussions around like communication, right? Like having RevOps in the meetings, helping understand what the problems are that you're facing day in, day out. And this kind of goes back to driving efficiency and productivity. So I was just like curious, like, how do you help give RevOps like this guiding light of what to like really focus in on? Because I think that you probably have your ear to the ground in terms of like knowing where problems might lie. Like, I know the reps are spending way too much time on this administrative work, and I want them more time spent selling or talking to customers. And like, how do you think about that from that perspective to just help relay that to RevOps so that they can go and figure out, well, how do we solve for that?
Right. That's a great question. Well, how I figure out is I spend a lot of time with salespeople, right? A lot of calls. I listen to them, what's working and what's not. And I think we've developed a culture here where it's okay to say, no one's going to get defensive. We want you to tell us what's working and what's not. Sometimes our salespeople can be the most vocal and kind of harsh on everyone internally, but I mean that in the best way. It's really hard to close business, right? If everybody could do it, they would do it. It takes a special person to be able to deal with the rejection and keep moving forward. So the first thing is I listen to people, I listen to what they're saying. And then the second part is we have a really great cadence internally where we do weekly business reviews at every level. So if I say the L0, that's the executive team, that's sort of the stats and things we look at that we owe our CEO. And I do that every week. And then my team does one with me, and then down a couple layers. And we bubble up a lot of issues. It could be operational issues, it could be sales ops or revenue ops issues. And so we don't let anything past a week go by where we don't bubble it up and try to address it. And we don't always fix it that week, but at least we've got it on record and we're listening to people and trying to fix it. And then the second piece of that is we have twice a month an S&OP meeting with our operations people. So it's what we call at Flexport demand, which is all of our go-to-market folks, so my team, and operations, which we nickname Go at Flexport. And we actually get in a room twice a month, and we go through a bunch of key things: what's working, what's not, wins, losses, operational issues that are causing us to maybe not close business, or if we're not performing the way we need to be. And again, it's a very open book, free space for everybody to raise up issues, but we do it in a collaborative way where we keep track of what's going on and we move to fix it. And then that takes that off of that salesperson's plate. They're not trying to solve an operational issue. They're not trying to solve that thing, but they know it's being worked on, and they can get back to what's most important, again, is being in front of customers as much as they can. And so with those reporting kits, and they're not perfect, Tyler. I mean, we're working on refining them and getting better. And there's some groups within the company that are a little further ahead than others. But from our CEO down, who kind of drives the company that way, Dave Clark, we manage that same cadence and process all the way down to the AE, and that's been really effective for us.
Super interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, if I think about like, if I was to take away every fireside chat and summarize it, it's always comes back down to listening to reps, listening to other teammates, and then figuring out like how to prioritize within that. That seems to be like the general theme of things. Now, as you're collecting all this feedback, right? And you're sitting in this, you get in these meetings, you have like a list of things. Are you letting RevOps drive that agenda on like what to solve for first? Is that like a collaboration thing that you see that happens? Or is this something like this, I see this as the biggest issue and this is the biggest impact on like revenue or whatever the goal is for you, and this is what RevOps should kind of go and do?
Yeah, it really depends on what the issue is, right? But if it's an issue around sales operations or revenue operations that's affecting that AE or account manager or SDR and how they're essentially the ability to close business or open up doors or keeping them from doing the work that we want them to do, then yeah, those RevOps people step in and they're really kind of driving it. And tactically they solve many things day to day, and I never hear about them, right?
Yeah.
But things get bubbled up to those weekly meetings I talk about. Or if I hear the same thing, I'm on, the other day I was on 3 different calls with 3 different sales reps, 2 in Europe and 1 in the US, and I heard the same thing. It's like the same issue, right? It's like, okay, so I'm going back to our sales op, RevOps team saying, hey, something's off here because we got 3 people in 3 different geographies telling me the same thing, and we need to be listening to them. And they figured it out right away and have solved it already, right? But to your point, it's there's really no silver bullet. It's just listening, and those people feeling like it's okay to talk to the CRO, whoever's in charge. Like you can say those things like, "Hey, this isn't working," and so we really try to. Our founder Ryan Peterson has always driven an open book culture. You can ask him anything, no matter who you are in the company, and so that we're 3,000 employees plus now, so it's. Sometimes that can be a little daunting, where they're even coming at me or Ryan or any of our executives, but it fosters this thing where it's okay to raise up issues and we solve them quickly.
Yeah, that's super important. Do you want to take another question? We got another one.
I see it right there.
Oh, you do? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Jeff also asked here, can you talk a little bit about the marketing sales handoff and how RevOps is kind of instrumental in this? I think we probably don't need to get into the technology piece. That's probably more of a RevOps question, but I think from the CRO perspective, I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit about like how you and RevOps work together to improve that, like that handoff between marketing and sales, and anything that you might have like expectation wise for a RevOps team.
So I assume this means, or I'm going to take it this way, that when we have a marketing effort and whatever comes about that marketing effort, how we hand it off to our sales team, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. So if you pay attention to us in particular, we have a very robust social media face, way more than anyone else in our industry, right? So we're very active on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we do a lot of like these kind of seminars that we have right now.
Yep.
We've got a really robust external communications team, which you've met some of these folks already, right? And,
Yep.
and they really drive an agenda based on our goals on how we want to grow, how we want to position ourselves in the marketplace. And that generates tons of leads and opportunities. So what we make sure right away is that any lead or opportunity that our marketing team or our external communication team surfaces, it gets right to an SDR immediately. And then we start through our whole process of validating that lead. And is it an opportunity? And then if we turn it into an opportunity, we're passing it on to sales right away. And we do it really quickly. Like for instance, today, our external marketing team will be asking you about who was on this call, and we'll look to see if they have business that makes sense for Flexport. And I guarantee you in a couple of days, if they do, we'll be contacting those clients very quickly.
Yeah. We don't know. We lost the list. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's just an example, right? And so some of the a really great example is last week we were at the Trans-Pacific Maritime Conference, which is the largest kind of industry event in what we do.
Yeah.
In 2 days, we had 65 unique customer meetings. And out of those came all kinds of things and, follow-ups, and a lot of our salespeople were involved. But there was also just a lot of general feedback around that our marketing team was getting from, we present something at that, and all of a sudden our website gets, 100x hits on it than it did the day before. Who hit it? Where's that coming from? What industries? Did they fill out our forms? Do we know who they are? And that warm lead, you want to hit it while it's warm, right? You don't want to come back a week later. You want to get it in that 24 to 48 hour period while people are thinking about you. So it's that huge focus of that. And like you said, there's all kinds of different technologies that we use and deploy to do all that stuff. But it's more about the speed and velocity, which I think someone brought up on the previous question. It's all about how fast do we move that to get that warm lead to that sales rep, right?
Yep.
And so the team's pretty darn good at it. They've gotten really quick at doing these things, and we capitalize because our industry is a little slow moving in general, and we tend to be out in the front of all those things, and it actually generates a ton of revenue for us. So it's super important.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, I think like it's always about like the process, right? Like, what does the business need to be doing, and then the technology for me always follows in, because that's what you have to go and sort out once you know. Okay, because this is a really simplistic example, but like one business might say, and this is the particular for Flexport in this case, is like, let's get to the lead as fast as possible. And another business might say, well, we actually want to kind of like nurture that over time. And then when they actually hand raise is when we're going to get to it. Mm-hmm. It's two examples.
And depends on your business, right? It just depends on your business and what's right for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. All right. I can already feel the time crunch here. And I just really want to get to this, because this is, I know that I've always thought about like extending these, but I like keeping them short too, because it's just a nice quick hit. So the one thing that I always just find, like, I always like talking about, and this is just me in the last like 5-6 years seeing this industry change on the RevOps side, which was just very focused on just solving. It's just firefighting, right? That's all operations teams did 5-6 years ago, plugging holes in software and integrations and trying to like unblock reps, which still hasn't gone away and is never going to go away. And it's going to be a part of being a revenue operations team. But I'm starting to see like more and more operations getting involved, particularly on like the go-to-market side and territory planning and compensation. Is like they're getting more involved in the company's like growth engine, or you could just call it like they're being more proactive about things. Like, I see this problem, let's go address that, and so on and so forth. So I think from why we have you on here is like from a CRO perspective, like if a ops team wants to try to transition to that proactive approach, to be like more of that partner in crime with you, like how can a CRO actually help with that transition? And maybe there's expectations that you have for the ops teams as well, and can shed some light on that. There's a lot of talking for me.
No. It's a good question. Well, one, our operations team, whether it's RevOps or the actual operations that manage shipments, what we do, right? Manage
Yeah.
shipments. They're very, very involved, one, with customers, and two, with the overall sell, right? Because remember I said it's for us, and again, we're not it's a very knowledge-based sell. So a lot of times our AEs get it to the point where our customers say, okay, I want to hear from the people that are really doing the work, that understand what's going on. A typical client for us could have a couple hundred active trade lanes, which means you're sourcing from 20 different countries, which means you're dealing with 25 to 30 different customs regimes, hundreds of government agencies. It's a very complex business.
Mm-hmm.
Our platform facilitates, all that to make it happen. But there's such a really large operational component to make that work. And so many of our operational people get involved with the sales process. Maybe not that prospecting hunting piece, but definitely as we get to a point where we're getting ready to close business and or we're trying to convince a client that we can manage it for them. So, that's the reason we have that sales ops, the SNOP, meetings that we do. We pull a lot of these people directly on sales calls with us. And so all those people are available to our sales team to help close business, and they do, and they're really good at it. They might not naturally be a salesperson, they're not out hunting and things like that, and maybe that's not their forte. But what comes across is that the salesperson has juice within the organization. Like they can get someone on the phone with the client that really understands down to the expert level what's going on.
Yep.
And I think that's very important, right? You're backing up that salesperson, showing that they have all the resources available to them to service that client. And then, the second thing is it keeps our salespeople again moving right to the next account, And then a lot from an operational standpoint, what we call sort of operational customer service, doesn't sit in my group. It sits in operations, and they're dealing with the customer day-to-day directly after we've closed business. But oftentimes these accounts are so big and there's so much to it, we don't close everything at once. We get a chunk of it here, a chunk of it there. And that interaction with that operations person with our client is a huge piece of why we get more business. So they have to be a little bit customer-centric, sales-focused. A lot of our operations people will come back to our salespeople and go, hey, they've got this new business on this lane, or you've been talking to them about that. And they feed leads back to our salespeople to help grow that book of business. So it's very interconnected for us. We live and die by each other.
Yeah. Now, if I'm sitting at the revenue operations side, so not necessarily the business ops or the commercial operations. I'm trying to remember all your terminology. It's so hard. Everyone's so different. And
Everyone's so
on
different.
all the customer calls, and everyone's got different things, and I just make stuff up half the time. So let's say that I think I want to end this call, with the silver bullet thing that we were kind of talking about. And I just, I'm sitting in the CRO seat. What is the one thing that a revenue operations team could provide you to do
my job?
This is do your job better, but that's an awful way to phrase the question. But you know what I mean? Is it reporting? Is it just what is that?
It's the number one thing from that team for me is that I have at any time I ask an accurate forecast on our pipeline, that I know what's coming on in the next 2 weeks to 6 months, and then what's out past 6 months that we need to work on as an organization that's going to take a little more time to get that business. Yeah. And I need to be able to see that almost in real time, anytime. And that's the discipline of our RevOps team to always keep that information fresh and meaningful, and drive the discipline through the rest of our organization to make that happen. That's in a nutshell what I expect out of our RevOps team.
You hear that, everyone? That's what we need to go do today. Yeah. So, Will, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, this time goes by so fast, and we covered a lot of things. Again, appreciate having you on.
Thank you, and congrats with all the success at Fullcast. You guys you're really cranking, so it's cool to see.
We're trying over here.
Here.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah, thanks,
See
Howard.
everyone.
Bye-bye.